Hey everybody, welcome to H4Games. I'm Tony.
And I'm John.
So we got some comments on our retro tech pickups video.
Yeah, we did. A lot of stuff about LaserDisc.
John, show us LaserDisc. Pick up some LaserDisc stuff.
Yeah, luckily, I managed to very recently, in the geologic sense, get some LaserDisc. That's right. About 5 years ago, I bought a working LaserDisc player at a Goodwill that came with a complete collection of 10 to 15 movies.
Exactly.
It is a complete collection of what the previous owner had. It's not a complete collection of LaserDisc.
Of course, yeah, exactly.
That would be pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I have yet to actually watch The Little Mermaid on LaserDisc. You want to do that in Spoon later?
Yeah, only if I could be Little Spoon. What? Is there a problem? That said, I do have a million questions about LaserDisc because it's always been a weird curiosity for me. So let's go ahead and get started.
It's a funky format.
Okay, so first off, what is LaserDisc?
Okay, so LaserDisc, quite simply, is a record-sized CD that carries a composite video signal on a big disc like that. It's thick too. It's like a big meaty disc. And you would load it in, and each side plays about 60 minutes of fairly nice standard definition video.
So you said about 60 minutes, so you'd have to flip them.
Yes,
yeah.
and unfortunately, which feature length?
Most people aim
Usually
for 90 or above, yeah.
So when does the second act transition to the third?
Normally about 60 minutes in.
Yeah, so one of the most important points of the movie is usually going to just be followed by whang, cha-chung, 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 whang, and like the disc like just popping out with just a black screen. You have to run over and be like, okay.
Exactly.
You have to like hold it like this. Like, here, let me see if I can. It's a real pain in the ass to take these out because the sleeve is not very big. You kind of have to grab it like that so that you don't touch the surface and then carefully set it back. So this thing's gotten a little senile, so you need to just give it just a little bit extra love. You can see that actuates, and then this part needs that little extra help, and then
So what was the time frame of LaserDisc? Because I remember it, it was in some arcade machines, like full motion video arcade machines in the 80s. I remember it existing in the early 90s, but when did it actually first become a thing?
First demoed some early tech of it in like 72, but 78 was when it finally released as MCA DiscoVision. That name wasn't extremely dated. I think they later changed it to Disco Video and then just LaserDisc, because that sounds way better.
Yes.
It fully launched in 1978, and its final release was, I believe, John Carpenter's Ghosts of Mars, which came out when Tony and I were in high school. So that is a long
That's
period.
a long run, yeah.
Like, if LaserDisc was a person, it would have graduated college and had a nice job before it was retired. It did have quite a long run despite never really being fully adopted. So what sort of people were buying LaserDisc? Every person I've ever known who's had LaserDisc collections has been a doctor.
Okay, is that because they could afford it?
Yes, they were extremely expensive at the time.
So basically, LaserDisc was an expensive treat for videophiles.
Yeah,
It was
a premier viewing experience.
People who generally had a master's or a doctorate of some sort purchased
People who
LaserDisc.
had more money than sense.
Exactly.
It did have a lot of educational opportunities because you could select which part. So there was a large library of educational, very strange educational, try and collect them if you find them, videos. So it was mostly schools and like higher end video files.
Okay. So big question I have for you is what are the technical advantages of a LaserDisc compared to a VHS?
Okay. So back in the day, before the 720, the 1080, the 1440, the 4K, the 6K, the 8K, the AK-47, That may actually predate these. But we had 480. Mm-hmm. But not everything was the equal 480. So VHS that we usually will watch is 330 by 480 pixels for an image, interlaced. But LaserDisc had 230 more horizontal pixels, weighing in at 560 by 480. So each horizontal scan line had a lot more definition to it. So you got a much crisper image.
So it's weird, thinking about it, because it's still 480, is still standard definition, but it's also a higher resolution of standard definition in a way.
Yeah. LaserDisc was actually a slightly higher resolution than NTSC analog broadcast. That was 440 by 480.
Yeah.
So 560, that's 120 extra pixels per line.
And so your standard CRT television back then, would they be able to showcase that well enough?
If you had a nicer TV, yes.
Okay. How does it handle contrast, brightness of contrast?
I seem to notice that it is quite a bit better.
Okay.
Not only because, it gets the better resolution to show that definition, but the darks seem to be darker, the brights seem to be brighter, and there's a much smoother transition between them.
Okay. So we have some video examples here. Can you explain them?
To use an old video phrase, we're going to take a look at an example where the format kind of crushed the blacks, where anything that was near black pretty much just falls into black. There's not much definition in very dark spaces. Mm-hmm. Getting a little hard to see what in the hell is happening. Mm-hmm. It's bad enough that the image is kind of muddy, but in the dark spots, you can't really make out what's going on. So now we're going to take a look at a very dark LaserDisc film, Blade Runner, so you can see some of that nice definition. Ooh. Here's a shot showing the nice color and variation in brightness from the movie Hackers.
And we're showcasing all of these examples, to be fair and kind of, have an even slate, all captured via composite.
Yes, it's all composite. So VHS has both viewing that degrades its image and just the Earth's magnetics slowly degrading it. Whereas LaserDisc, unless it's prone to disc rot, will stay pretty good for quite a long time.
Assuming you're storing it properly and all of those things.
So we're going to take a look at a beat-up VHS to show how bad the format can get. So our first film as an example is Abraxas, starring former Minnesota Governor Jesse the Body Ventura. And as you can see, it's not looking pretty. The repeated viewings have really muddied the image. It's almost like somebody smeared it around a little bit.
A lot of what I read about LaserDiscs is they're pretty collectible for the art. There's a lot of real estate to talk about the actual movie, and there's a lot of art and images and Princess Leia's tits.
Yeah, you can see they went on and on and on the back of this thing. There's an entire paragraph about the producer talking about how much he likes Portland.
That's also a little thing, though, for those videophiles that would be purchasing this. Would almost feel like vindicated in a way that's like, I made a good choice. I feel like, I did something good for myself. Look at all this extra I get that these peasants with their VHS players don't get. They just get a synopsis.
Thing that I really like about some of them is getting to see the full cover. Mm-hmm. I had a CD of the Beatles' Revolver. And that's a big record just crunched down on the little CD cover, and I didn't realize how intricate the drawing was.
Sure.
So I actually walked by the real record in a record shop, and I actually got to pause and pick it up and look at it, and I got to look at all the cool little drawings in it. And you get a lot of that. You get sometimes behind-the-scenes pictures, other stuff. Sometimes you get the cool old artwork. I know there's a lot of people who will buy these just to frame them.
So let's talk about storage with these things, because another thing that I read is that disc rot is an issue, and also they come apart, I guess. So how do you properly store them?
Part of that.
Okay.
So what I have read is usually about a couple inches deep, not quite a foot deep. You lay them flat, just like stacked on top of each other. And every once in a while, I go through and I shuffle them. And I know that's the most infuriating thing in the world to keep doing that. Not just because it's kind of like an irritating waste of time, but because then you don't just have one sitting on the top that's pulling apart, although it's very hard to keep them alphabetized if you're having to do that. Well, so sometimes it's alphabetized, sometimes it's reverse alphabetized. But because they were such large CDs, I believe the way it was explained to me was, if you'll hold these, the two pieces holding the aluminum that is the part they print onto slowly start to contract from heat and aging.
Okay.
And they start to pull a little bit apart. And so you start to get minor deflections in the aluminum. And so for my version of Highlander that I have on LaserDisc, will show a clip. There's an interrogation scene where you'll notice some little black spots flicker. That is disc rot. It can eventually get so bad it's essentially unplayable. And if they get scratched up, they can be resurfaced, but there's like acres of area on these things.
So let's talk a little bit about the player itself. Can it play CDs?
Mine can. It can play 5 CDs.
So it's actually like a 5 CD changer in addition to a LaserDisc player.
Many of them are.
Oh, okay. One aspect that I was actually kind of surprised about regarding the actual unit was that it was composite out. And at the time, I believe S-Video existed, and you would have thought that...
By the time mine was built, yes.
Okay. But you just would have thought for a premium format, you would have a premium or at least upgraded way to, transmit that to your television, so to speak.
Well, the issue is that the native format printed on it is composite. And sometimes it can be tricky to transcode.
Okay. So basically it just started off that way and stayed that way.
There were later ones that had S-Video. There were ones that also did component later, and those ones that did component also did DVD. One of the big limitations of composite was once you got a high enough resolution, you got something called dot crawl, which some of the later LaserDiscs did have.
So dot crawl is, for those of you that aren't aware, it's when a bunch of dots go to a bunch of different bars, and they drink at one bar, then they go to another bar, then they drink at that bar, then they go to another bar, they drink at that bar, and generally they'll have like 5 or 6 bars. And by the time they get home to your television, because they have to do this whole process as they're going through from the LaserDisc player through the cord, all the way to the television, up into your eyes, they're so drunk that they just don't even make any sense.
Yes.
And so it creates an issue because you're pushing this high resolution, really drunken dots through your TV.
And it definitely doesn't look like a crawling dot that's a little artifact.
No, heavens to Betsy.
I think that's a perfect way.
So thank you very much, everybody, for watching our Retro Tech Pickups LaserDisc edition. Even though they were picked up like 5 years ago, we were more than happy to discuss it. And I know John's been itching to do it for quite some time. So let us know in the comments below what else you would like us to talk about, because we'd love to do it. Other than that, thank you for subbing. Thank you for clicking that notification button. And we'll see you guys next time.
Goodbye, horses. I'm flying over you. Flying, flying, flying over you.
That's a copyright strike. Thank you again for watching. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like and a share, and we will see you guys next time.